I just busted every myth there is about technology and people over 60. Hello, I'm Patricia Muir. Women face a crossroads as they approach the age of 60 or when they turn 60. They can choose to remain professionally active or withdraw from the workforce, or they can choose leisure or recreation, or they can choose to give back through community involvement or even advocacy. There are more choices now than ever. Are you wondering how to transfer your professional skills and your experience to a fulfilling role as a social entrepreneur? For women entrepreneurs and executives, the power of advocacy can be especially fulfilling. Today, Helen Hirsh Spence, CEO of Top 60 Over 60, is going to tell us about her experience as she transitioned her skills into social activism. After 35 years of senior leadership positions, both public and private education sectors, Helen embarked on a journey of social entrepreneurship. Helen saw how ageism was impacting baby boomers and now advocates for overcoming the challenges of ageism. Welcome, Helen. And we're going to have fun today. There's another live post somewhere that people are going to wonder what the heck happened, but we overcame it, right?
And it had nothing to do with age. It had nothing to do
with age. Well, actually, I think it probably did. We are smart enough, wise enough, and patient enough to get through any kind of technology glitch that we might encounter.
So, but Helen, in this case, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that wasn't our fault. No. It had to do with the streaming.
Yeah. Okay. So we can have a laugh about this. That's the other thing, right? We've got a great sense of humor about this. We're not going to let anything deter us. Okay. No. Helen, you've immersed yourself in addressing ageism, both personally and professionally on that basis. Please share what's behind your passion and your interest in this topic.
You know what? I've given that a lot of thought, and I only realized after thinking about it that the reason was because I was personally impacted by ageism, but I didn't recognize it as ageism at the time. So as you said in the intro, I'd had a great career in education and felt pretty confident, and spent years after I stopped working in that environment in the not-for-profit sector, traveling around the world, working with different organizations, chairing boards such as the Jane Goodall Institute of Canada, and doing a number of things that were adventurous, risky, and this is in my 60s now that I'm talking about. But suddenly I hit a wall, and I was beginning to feel invisible, irrelevant. I lost my confidence, and I couldn't quite figure out, to what I should attribute that. It didn't make much sense. And when I spoke to other friends and colleagues who were in similar situations, by that I mean my age, and it also had, a number of different roles in their professional careers, they said they felt similarly. And so when I started to do some research, I realized that what we were all experiencing was what's referred to as internalized ageism. Yeah. And I didn't know anything about it. And when I found out about it, I thought, well, rather than lament this, what can I do about it? And that's really what launched me into this social enterprise realm.
Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, also launched you into speaking about ageism. Oh, yeah. And you spoke recently in Banff, in Canada, this past August. What kind of feedback did you get when you spoke about ageism at that conference?
So, I have been invited on numerous occasions to speak at conferences and whatnot. This one was for financial advisors. It was called Advocacy, and there were hundreds of professionals there. It's part of their professional development. And I spoke to them about, the trends, the demographic trends. And I specifically talked to them about how ageism had an impact on everybody's life, but also needed to be attended to by financial advisors, because finances is one major part of moving on in retirement, but it's only one part of it. And it's not always the most important part. Most importantly are a lot of the social determinants in addition to the financial. I think a lot of it came as a surprise to these to the people. And to give you an example, everybody who I encountered afterwards said thank you, that they had no idea that, you know, everyday ageism existed in so many different formats. I also had a few women who came up to me afterwards who said, crying actually, saying that it's the first time they understand why they were feeling the way they did, and that they had no idea that there was such a thing as internalized ageism, or that, you know, I gave lots of examples. And I also talked about the fact that financial advisors typically don't speak to women as well as they do to men. And that 1 year after spouses typically die, and it's almost always the woman who is the survivor, most women leave the financial advisor after a year because they have no relationship with the financial advisor. Anyway, so it was not only oriented towards financial advisors, what I said, because I've talked about this before in other settings. And every time I get a lot of appreciation, especially from women, because I don't think that they recognize that our generation, and I assume you're the same generation as I am. I'm now 73. So I grew up with women's lib. I grew up in civil rights movement. I grew up through Vietnam War and everything. And everything I've lived through has been youth oriented. Everything we see in advertisement is about anti-aging. Well, anti-aging is death. You know, so I don't know why anybody is promoting anti-aging cream.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're bringing up some really good points, right? With one of the biggest challenges, as you said, is how we internalize or we interject some of these messages.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big dangers of ageism, right? Is the messages. Can you
Absolutely.
say a little more about what internalized ageism looks like?
Yeah, well, I don't think what it is unconscious bias against ourselves and our future selves. That's what it is, and the bias is. I'll give you some classic examples. You know, somebody may say to you, Patricia, that you really look good for your age. Well, that's an ageist comment. What
Sorry
is
for
your
laughing, but we hear that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we do. And the truth of the matter is, although we want to say, oh, well, thank you, that's flattering. Well, it isn't, because what it's saying is that because you're older, and my image of what old is not what you are. It's telling the world that you've got an ageist bias. Another example is friends of mine or anybody who wants to be funny and they can't remember where they put their keys and they say, oh, I'm having a senior's moment. I always make sure that I nicely let them know that, in fact, just by saying that, they're perpetuating the myth that we all go into cognitive decline. So there are all sorts of things that we experience on an everyday basis. In fact, when they've done studies, and recently there was one done, I think it was the University of Michigan in 2020, 85% of people between the ages of 50 and 80 experience ageism on a daily basis. 85%. That's huge. Not only that, I mean, there have been studies recently or reports put out by, for instance, the World Health Organization with a campaign against ageism. And according to them, 1 out of 2 people is ageist against older people. And yet here we are going through the biggest aging boom of history, with the demographic trend only trending up. We don't have enough births to replace the number of people who are over the age of 65. And we aren't going to have that for decades and decades to come, if ever. Our lives have been extended thanks to technology, medicine, healthier diets, more knowledge about exercise, vaccines that have prevent death, child mortality. All these reasons why our lives are longer. However, we haven't adapted our societal norms to what to expect with, the longevity dividend that we all experience.
Yeah, it is a positive dividend, but actually, like you have mentioned, really good examples of how there is a threat to us to internalize the common stereotypes about aging and the misconceptions. And you and I went through a great example today of we busted some of those myths and stereotypes. We got on here regardless, right? And as you said, participating in the stereotypical jokes and that attack or excuse abilities and things like that actually undermines our efforts to rise above all that noise on social media and what the media is pushing out, because of course it is a great story for them to profit on, right? It undermines our ability to find fulfillment. And when I say our, I mean women over the age of 60 who are looking forward to something. They've had great careers. They have great educations. They want to continue contributing. They want to find something that's fulfilling to them. So this is a good segue into what I would like to ask you to express, like what provides fulfillment for you at this moment?
Well, in general, personal and professional, I mean?
Yes, general, because that's our life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going to say the very first thing that comes to mind is the fact that I'm a grandmother. I have 3 wonderful grandchildren, and I never used to understand the women who I knew who would go on and on about the grandchildren showing pictures, and I try not to do that. But honestly, if you wanted to talk to me about them, I could spend 2 hours talking about them now. So just that whole legacy, that I have children. I'm proud of who they've become. And now I have another generation to look forward to watching them grow up, and as much as possible participate in their lives without interfering with them is one of the greatest sources of fulfillment. I took up watercolor painting a few years ago. And that I never thought I could do anything in that realm, but I love it. I continue to walk. I was big on trekking and in the Himalayas and Andes and all over the world, actually. And I continue to love to do that, although I have one knee replaced and the other one probably needs replacement soon too, if I keep it up. There are just so many things. But the biggest fulfillment I think that I get in the work that I'm doing, and it's always been that way as a secondary school principal, teacher, headmistress in a private girls' school, it's always been the interaction with staff and students and that continued relationship that I have as time moves on. This weekend, a young woman, well, she's not so young anymore. I taught her she's in her 60s. I taught her German and French in the 1970s when I was starting out. She's coming to visit from Vancouver. So, that having those kinds of opportunities, and I really believe it's so important to have friends along the age continuum, older and younger, in order for us to stay, vital and energetic and interested.
That's a big advantage of having longevity in our life, is that we do have the opportunity to, look at those relationships in a way that is different than we looked at them when we were in our 20s, 30s, 40s, right?
Yeah.
One of the segments we have in this show for Executive Encore is called Every Moment Matters. As we say, every moment matters for us, right?
Yeah.
Could you share a pivotal moment when you recognized what you've just spoken about as what is fulfillment? What does fulfillment look like for you?
I think it was when I probably launched the top 60 over 60, which is my social enterprise, and realized that in fact it could have an impact on the population with whom I come into contact, and I've seen that it has. So for this point, for this time in my life, it's extremely important to have meaning and a purpose beyond husband, grandchildren, and so on. That's fantastic. And money. Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm not I'm not struggling financially. I'm of a generation that had a pension. So, and I don't take that for granted because I don't think future generations are going to be as fortunate. So they will struggle perhaps in different ways. So I am very privileged. I mean, I recognize my white privilege, and it concerns me the inequities in the world. So if I can help people overcome the age inequity and address, age diversity, which is what I'm doing when I work with businesses and organizations, help them understand the value of a multi-generational workforce and age diverse teams and so on. That's what I feel is fulfilling to me at the moment.
Good, good. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Helen. You've brought a lot of wisdom to this particular program. I want to for sticking with us today. That was great. Join me each week as I interview other women and other thought leaders like Helen for those who are finding fulfillment after the age of 60. If you would like to be interviewed yourself, please let me know. You can contact me at patriciamuir.com on my website. And visit my website to learn more and read the Executive Encore weekly blog and subscribe to the newsletter. And have a great day, everyone. It was a pleasure to be with you today.
Can I add something?
Of course.
Well, I didn't mention my website, which I should have, which is top60over60 written out.com. And we have a newsletter as well. You can subscribe. It's just at the bottom of the page. And please reach out if I can help you personally or professionally. I look forward to it.
Great. And we'll put that information in follow-up social media as well.